I did the reference run under 12 reference. Reference, 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 reference. Hey! Welcome to Enchantment of Eternity. I'm Mark. Here's my review for Solo, a Star Wars story. I'm just keeping this really quick, really simple, really spoiler-free. I just saw it last night. Midnight showing in New Zealand. Has come out in New Zealand. I don't know. I think it's coming out a few days later in the U.S. I'm not sure. I don't know about it. I didn't see it early. I saw it at the same time as everyone else in New Zealand did. But anyway, just my quick thoughts on this film. I wasn't as excited about it. In fact, not because of the production issues, but just the whole concept of doing a backstory for Solo is not appealing to me, and I think it's the same way for many people. And I feel it's kind of a way that the Star Wars universe is being oversaturated. But overall, I don't have an issue with that. It's just a transition. It's a change, because in the past, Star Wars movies, even the prequels, which a lot of people hate, were seen as like they're huge epic things that happen every couple of years. And now it's changing, where it's no longer like this epic thing that's rare and happens every once in a while. It's a commonplace thing that happens a lot, and it tells all sorts of stories. It's more like a TV show or something like that, where you explore the world more. And I'm fine with that, because that was George Lucas's vision originally. Like, after the prequels were released, he wanted to do a series of TV shows. I think he was inspired by Star Trek, and sort of jealous of the way Star Trek has explored their universe and their lore by having all these different shows going at the same time. So he wanted to do something similar to Star Wars, but that never happened. And instead, Disney ended up buying the rights, and later, more contemporary times, still more inspired by the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is a much more financial hit than Star Trek ever was. And so they're taking their inspiration from them and doing a cinematic universe instead. But that's fine. The result's the same. The universe is going to be expanded a lot more. And like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there's also TV shows as well, but the movies are mainly the main thing. So that's something, a change that we just have to get used to. In that regard, I don't have an issue with that. There's just something new, something new. And with Solo, a Star Wars story, this movie was fine. I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought it would, based off of the reviews I was saying. I didn't expect to hate it. I didn't think it would suck, but I didn't think it would be that great, and it was slightly better than I thought it would be. And watching some of these reviews that critics are saying, I think they're being way too harsh. Like, I've heard some people say that the structure was off, characters didn't work, you could tell there were reshoots because the story was all over the place, and I completely and utterly disagree with that. I actually would say the structure and the plot and the pacing were perfect. They all worked. In fact, it was probably my favorite aspect about the film was the structure and the pacing. I thought it was perfectly paced, perfectly structured. The character stories worked. And so I didn't have any issues with that. My main issue with the film is just kind of bland. It's kind of like, I'm going to review Star Trek Insurrection next week, and if you look at it from a structural character point of view, it's actually really well done, but it just doesn't have much to say. It's not very engaging, and it's not doesn't really have anything original to say. And that's what I would say about Solo, is that the characters and the structure and everything like that worked. It's just not that interesting. I mean, it is kind of interesting. As I said, I did like it. I really enjoyed it a lot better than I thought I would. But it's just not. It's the kind of movie, if it didn't have the Star Wars name attached to it, I would like it, enjoy it, and forget about it in a couple of months, and then someone would mention it. I'm like, oh yeah, I saw that. That was entertaining, and then that's it. I wouldn't like hold it up on a pedestal and say, oh, this is a great movie, or this is something I need to watch multiple times. It would just be like an entertaining movie to enjoy 2 hours with, and then forget about it. And those kind of movies have their place. And again, I don't really have an issue with Star Wars doing movies like that. If they want to do movies like that, that's fine. Now, as far as like Han Solo not coming off as Han Solo, he kind of does, kind of doesn't. I think that works. I didn't really have any issue with that. I do get the criticism that he's not as grumpy as Han Solo was seen. However, you could also make the excuse that that's because he's younger and he didn't get grumpy until you get a bit older, because that's what grumpy old men. That's sort of the thing. So I can see that being the case as well. A lot of people praised Lando. I think Lando did work very well. A lot of people loved Donald Glover. I thought he was good in this role, but he wasn't my favorite. For me, he wasn't the standout. The standout was Chewie. I thought Chewie was amazing in this film, and I loved getting his backstory, and I loved the way they introduced him with Han. He was the one I was most interested in. And Emilia Clarke was good in this movie. A lot of people claim that she's a horrible actress. I disagree. I think a lot of these Game of Thrones actors are awesome on Game of Thrones, but when they go outside of Game of Thrones and work with directors who aren't very good, they give horrible performance. So it shows that they're not that really good actors on their own, but if they're put with the right directors, they can do a great job. And Emilia Clarke was in the Terminator Genisys crap, and she did a horrible job, but that's because that was a horrible written movie with a horrible director. You put her with Ron Howard in this movie, and she does a great job. Again, like she would in Game of Thrones. So I actually felt she was really convincing, and I really liked her part, and I thought it was well written. A lot of people are underselling Woody Harrelson, too. I heard someone say, oh, he's hardly in the film, or he doesn't really need to be there. I could not disagree more. I was like, what are you guys even talking about? His character is very important to the film, and I thought he was in the film a lot. And I liked what they did with this character. But all that being said, like, the film went in a very predictable direction. Like, there's a line from the trailer, which I won't spoil because it's spoiler free. I mean, even though it's from the trailer, but what I'm about to say would contain spoilers. But anyway, there's a line from a trailer that gives away what's going to happen at the end. Like, when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh, so this is how the movie's going to end. And sure enough, it was, and so it's a bit too telegraphed. It doesn't offer anything original. In that regard, it reminds me a lot of The Force Awakens because it's just something that's safe, something that this is a safe story that's not going to ruffle any feathers like Last Jedi did, which is why I like Last Jedi way better, because they took risks, which some people say damaged Star Wars, some people say, like me, that it paid off, but we'll leave that aside. But anyway, this movie takes no risk. It's like The Force Awakens, it plays it safe, but I'd actually put The Force Awakens a bit higher than this film because even though it was just as safe, it actually introduced more original elements like Rey and Finn and the original elements to the story where this doesn't at all. This just, oh, these are the characters. You know, there's a few new characters, but they're not really the focus. The focus, and now I'll get to the action sequences, I'll get to them. Like, some people were complaining, saying, oh, it's like the conveyor belt scene from Attack of the Clones, and these action sequences suck. I disagree. I think they're being too harsh. I didn't have that big of an issue with them, but on the flip side, they weren't really intense. They weren't really engaging. It wasn't like, wow, these are intense, amazing action sequences. I absolutely love them, like I did with The Last Jedi. With these, it was just like, okay, yeah, they're significant, they're sufficient, they're good enough. They, whatever. Some of them I thought dragged on a bit too long. It got too CGI heavy, like the big one at the end. I'm just like, all right. Let's move things along here. But they weren't horrible. I didn't think they sucked. They were adequate. That's how I put them. However, as I alluded to in my prologue there, the biggest issue I had with this film is the references. Like see, get this. And this is something I knew they were going to do, and that's kind of why I wasn't that interested in this idea. And that's an issue I had with Rogue One. I think it was even worse in this film, where it just went overboard with giving like too much. Oh, this is how this happened, and this is how that happened, and this is how that happened. Now, I did like, as I said, how Chewie and Han met, and I actually liked how Han got his name. A lot of people were complaining, oh, we don't need to know how he got his name. We don't, but I always thought his name was stupid, like the Solo part, and they actually explained that really well in this film, and I actually think it added to it. But a lot of the other stuff, like the Kessel Run, like the whole film became about the Kessel Run. This is like one line. Like, if you're not a Star Wars geek, you probably won't even know this. It's like one line from New Hope where he mentions the Kessel Run, so they make a whole sequence, a whole huge thing, and they hammer it in, Kessel Run, Kessel Run, Kessel Run, and I was just like, shut up. But and all the other references that they do are just, you get a bit too much, a bit too overboard, and the whole thing with Lando, they do that as well. So that's probably the biggest issue I had with the film. And that being said, it's not that big of an issue. But as I said, it's just not engaging or grabbing it. It's engaging enough, but it's not like unique. And it's not something that I would say is great. So anyway, my rating for Solo: A Star Wars Story out of 10 is a 7. Very good. I do think it's better than a lot of these critics are saying it is. I don't think it has any of these flaws that they're saying that it does. I think the structure works, the characters work, the story works. I didn't mind the fact some people complained it didn't have a villain and that the villain was time. I actually like that. I don't think you always need to have an ever-present villain. I like that the villain was time. I actually think that added to it. But that being said, it's not that, it's really bland, it's really predictable, it doesn't take any risks, it plays it safe, and yeah, there you go. And too many references. Anyway, that's it for my review of Solo: A Star Wars Story. You can check out my channel as I do other videos on other shows like The Expanse, Star Trek, Game of Thrones, Babylon 5, and more, so be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all that. And thanks a lot for watching.